I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. Well, I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole.
Well, hello. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Yasmin Aliyah Khan with you guys. Yasmin's on Rebel HQ. Great to see you as always. Anna Kasparian is going to be on CNN tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're checking that out. And they are going to be talking about Gaza. So buckle up, brace for impact. So that's CNN tonight at 10 o'clock with Anna Kasparian. Okay, by the way, yes, we come in, boom, already. Christelle Barcott, Robert Dahlen, Jovid Drave. All just joined through the join button below on YouTube. We love you guys. All right, we got a big show ahead for you guys, including a bonus episode tonight, Operation Joy. We're gonna ask you another important question about joy and happiness and bliss and all the fun things we talk about because we're a little cray-cray. So good time to become a member, tyt.com/join. And now we've got a lot of stories for you, including Donald Trump talking about, I mean, people want me to be a dictator. I'm not, but people want me to be. So, and later in the show, the DNC has the easiest vote of all time, where they have 92% of the voters on one side. Try to take a wild guess which side they went with. Well, you'll find out later in the program.
Yeah, they goof it, but we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. For now, let's get into this first story.
You're going to fire Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, over her mortgage fraud?
If she doesn't resign, yeah. What she did was bad, so I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
Well, in this case, Donald Trump actually stuck to his word, and now he's saying that he is moving to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook in an unprecedented and legally dubious power grab. So we'll give you Trump's justification for firing her. But first, Cenk, this, what did they say? Legally dubious power grab? That is putting it very, very mildly. We're seeing some wildly unprecedented things with this presidency, including, and I think it's important to remind our viewers of this, the fact that Trump is, wrangling these institutions that are a part of our federal government, things that are supposed to be independent of the presidency, and he just has all of them underneath him. He has installed loyalists everywhere that he has been able to, and in the areas where he hasn't been able to, he's thinking about it, and this is what we're seeing here. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a disaster. Hopefully it'll be fended off. So the number one problem with Donald Trump is his constant desire to go past the law, past the Constitution, past any, forget decorum, I don't give a damn about decorum, past any actual laws and rules that govern our country and our way of life. So that's why I think he's oftentimes un-American. So the Supreme Court just ruled on this. He cannot mess with the Federal Reserve's independence. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. I want to fire her. But you don't have the power to fire her. I don't care, I want to fire her anyway. It's like him saying, that's it, I'm firing John Idarola from the Young Turks. But you don't have that power. He's like, I don't care, I want to do it anyway. Well, all right, if you don't care, then step aside. Let someone who cares about our laws and our Constitution do the job. Because you obviously don't want to. You want to do a different job. Perhaps an authoritarian job. What he keeps talking about the last couple of days. Now, I'm not a dictator, but people would love it if I was. No, people would not love it if you were. Maybe some of your base would. Oh yeah, I love America, that's why I hate democracy. Would say someone who is profoundly dumb and hates this country. But for the rest of us, no, we would not like it every time you violate the law or violate the Constitution. So to give you more details about this dumbass plan he has.
Yeah, so Trump has been eager to fire Cook for some time now because it would allow him to install a loyalist into the Fed who would push for lower interest rates, which is something that we know he has been pushing for a long, long time. So he justified firing Cook by pointing to allegations that Cook may have falsified records to obtain favorable terms on a mortgage. The allegations came from Bill Pulte, the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, who, like Trump, has also been trashing the Fed for not lowering interest rates. He says he got a tip about Cook, but wouldn't say where he got it from. So reporting says that Pulte specifically claimed that Cook had committed mortgage fraud, alleging that she improperly designated both a condominium in Atlanta and a home in Ann Arbor, Michigan as her primary residence when taking out loans. In doing so, Pulte said Cook had falsified bank documents and property records in a way that allowed her to obtain a lower interest rate. Pulte referred the case to the Justice Department, which opened a criminal investigation at his request. But as of now, Cook hasn't been charged with any kind of wrongdoing, nor has she been convicted of any crime. Nonetheless, Trump, he wrote in a letter addressed to Cook and shared on social media. He said, "You are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, effective immediately. I have determined there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position." Letter, okay. So is this allowed? Here is what the law says. Under the Federal Reserve Act, the law that charters the central bank, Trump may dismiss a governor only if he can demonstrate cause, typically defined as professional neglect or malfeasance. In recent days, legal experts have questioned whether the president could satisfy that burden, given the fact that the allegations against Cook have not been proven in court and involve personal matters. In addition to all of that, the Supreme Court said in May that while granting Trump the ability to remove members of other independent agencies, that the Federal Reserve is a uniquely structured quasi-private entity that has its own distinct historical tradition. And yeah, like what we were saying earlier, this is truly unprecedented. No previous president has even tried to oust a sitting Fed governor, but of course, nothing is off limits for Trump. And I feel like he can just say something, even if, as you mentioned, Cenk, he doesn't have the actual authority to make something happen. He can just say it, and then like he has so many lackeys in various aspects, areas of our government that maybe he can actually get it to happen. But even Michael Strain from the Conservative American Enterprise Institute slammed Trump for trying to undermine the independence of the Fed by saying the president is using the criminal justice system to remove people from office over policy disagreements. That is extremely dangerous and is, in the case of the Fed, a threat to long-term prosperity. And guess who agrees with all of that? Jim Cramer from CNBC. Take a look.
If you've been indicted for mortgage fraud, you shouldn't serve. But she hasn't been indicted for mortgage fraud, so why should she step down on the possibility that she's being investigated? No, she shouldn't step down. The Federal Reserve, as is, has historically been the best. And one of it is because it's independent. It's very difficult to try to get them to do something they shouldn't do. But if you think that you're going to wake up one day and discover that the Justice Department may or may not be indicted, it's highly embarrassing. It's terrible to find out that you might be charged by the Justice Department, but you don't know. But the president's taking swift action, and it's very intimidating.
I do feel like intimidation is the point, a big part of it. So Lisa Cook, for her part, is fighting back. She said in a statement last week that she had no intention of being bullied to step down from my position because of some questions raised in a tweet. And now she is vowing to file a lawsuit contesting Trump's attempt to oust her. And yeah, Cenk, I feel like the fact that she said she has no intention of being bullied to step down is important because she hasn't been fired. Just because Donald Trump posts something on Truth Social, it doesn't mean that anything is actually going to happen. I feel like he does all these things to make it seem like he's a strong man. He's trying to get people used to the fact that he's going to say these things and people are going to make these things happen for him. And on top of that, he's getting people used to the idea of Trump, acting more dictatorially and more authoritarianly, is that the word I'm looking for? So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so Supreme Court just ruled on this and they gave Trump almost everything he wanted. They said, okay, normally the Department of Justice is independent. A lot of agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is independent. And these guys do a lot of things, but they also go after white collar criminals. And Trump's like, I don't want their independence. I don't want to go after white collar criminals. And then he pardoned a slew of people who were charged with fraud, financial fraud. And so he's like, no, I don't want any cops on Wall Street. I hate cops on Wall Street. I hope me and my donors get to do whatever we want on Wall Street. So the Supreme Court said, okay, fine. They no longer have independence. You could fire them, etc. But the one place where there's still independence is the Federal Reserve. And so Trump goes, oh, okay, thank you for giving me 95% of what I wanted, a giant power grab. Now I can just control the Department of Justice. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start a fake case against Cook because I don't like that they didn't lower interest rates. And why is he picking on Cook? Out of all of them, who knows? But the fact that she's an African-American woman is probably a part of it. If that hurts your feelings, I don't really care, okay? So it doesn't matter. I don't care if he does it to the whitest dude in America. He's not allowed to do it. So, but he says, oh yeah, I got an idea. If I found out that there's a loophole, if they're convicted of a serious crime, then maybe the president could get involved. So Department of Justice, why don't you just start a case against her? Well, that's not how it's supposed to work. If you find a case and somebody's done something wrong, nobody's above the law, right? But if you say, yeah, I want that political opponent, or in this case, economic opponent, charged, go find me a case. I mean, again, tin pot dictator. This is stupid. This isn't America. Okay, and if you're a right winger and you hate any kind of principles, well, you better hope that no Democrat wins. And if going like this, you might think, oh yeah, authoritarianism, I love it, I love it. I wouldn't want any democracies where the stupid Democrats can win. I want to rule forever. Okay, yeah, but then you're not an American. Go live in a different country, okay? But if the Democrats get a hold of this power, they could use it just the same. And they could go, oh, here we go, all my political opponents, MAGA X, MAGA Y, right winger there, Republican there. Oh, I just happened to start a whole bunch of cases against you guys. I told them to go investigate you, and they dug and dug and dug. Oh, look at that, back in 1987 you did this, I'm coming after you. So the whole thing's a sham in the first place. So now the Justice Department has no independence, they're going to investigate her. She, as CNBC points out, and everybody points out, because it's a fact, she hasn't even been charged, she hasn't been indicted. Trump just said, I want her investigated and I want you to look into it. And the Justice Department's like, I don't know, maybe something about her mortgage. We don't have anything to charge her with. Trump's like, good enough, you're fired. But that's not a thing, you don't have that power. Okay, I watched that whole CNBC clip, it was amazing. Because they're torn, right? They don't want to criticize their beloved president. They're like, the market's up, we love this guy. And one of them asked in the middle, they're like, hey, if there's no rule of law anymore and the Federal Reserve has no independence, then politicians will play around with it and it'll totally screw up the markets. Aren't you concerned about that? And Cramer's answer was, market's up, the companies love it. Oh yeah, market's up. Yeah, but dude, idiot. Market's up today, what happens tomorrow? What happens a month from now? What happens 6 months from now? When you realize, oh yeah, Trump got rid of the Federal Reserve, folks who were independent, put in a bunch of dumbasses who were like, oh yeah, let's lower interest rates to -12, and the market collapses. Well, then market won't be up. So God, it's so frustrating that everybody sees, not everybody, a lot of people unfortunately see just like right in front of them. Oh, there's a little bit of crime in DC, let's just give up democracy. Roll in the tanks, who cares? There's a little, I'm a little bothered by crime. Should we hire more cops and fix it that way? Which would still be a conservative position. No, I need the Marines. And these guys, the markets are up, just give away all the power and democracy. So this is unbearable. And Cramer, I mean, the whole time he's like, I mean, why doesn't she just resign? I mean, most people would resign. I mean, if the president's bullying you, I mean, it's gonna take up a lot of your resources and your time. Why don't you just, in other words, they're like, look, just give him what he wants. Just give him everything he wants, okay? And besides which, they're gonna cut interest rates, and Cramer and the market would be happy with that. Again, for a couple of days or a couple of months, and then if inflation goes up because of his dumbass tariffs, then they're like, oh no, we shouldn't have cut the rates, it's fueling more inflation. Then they'll panic, but it'll be too late. You don't have this power. Move on to do 8,000 other things that you have the power to do. It's not an accident, Yaz. He's testing the limits of his power over and over and over again. That's why over the last couple days, every single day he's brought up, I could be a dictator. I mean, I don't want to, but I could be. Because he's testing the limits of how much he can get away with, because he doesn't believe in democracy. It never has. And you saw it in 2022. Oh, no, still what? Today, Rogan and Dave Smith, great podcast, they're talking about, we gave him 4 years to come up with one goddamn piece of evidence about 2020. I mean, you run your mouth the whole time. 2020, I was wrong. But whiny little bitch. So show me one piece of evidence you were robbed. I don't have anything. I don't like Democrats. Nah. Look, man, this ain't strong. This is super weak. So this whiny little bitch wants to be a dictator, and if you're a right winger, you thought you loved freedom, and you want to give it away to a guy who doesn't understand the limits of a president's power within a democracy, and you want to give him infinite power and hope for the best? Nah, then you never loved this country.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We did see it in 2022. We've seen it for years, right? He's always been this guy, and he's been ramping things up steadily since he even announced that he was going to be running for president back in 2015-16. And I don't know why people don't learn. I don't know why they haven't learned by now that the more you keep enabling him, the more it's going to you're just going to enable him. That's how it works, right? The more you let him get away with, the more he's going to try to get away with. Somebody like Donald Trump, who only understands numbers, who only understands money and greed and the accumulation of wealth and power, is not going to be the one to say, you know what, that's enough, I'm done, I'll just stop here. He's never gonna be able to put that check and balance on himself. Not only that, but he's going out of his way to erode the existing checks and balances that have been in place. Here he is, he's already been weaponizing the DOJ, he's doing it again here. He's already been trying to co-opt the Fed because he hates that the Fed is actually an independent agency, to the point where he even said, it was dumb for Joe Biden to appoint Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed, forgetting entirely that it was actually him who appointed Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed. But Cenk, you did mention the fact that Cook is an African-American woman, and that point has actually come up among Democrats, but there is some disagreement as to how relevant that is. So in response to Trump's attempt to fire Lisa Cook, Democrats rolled out their old identity politics defense. Hakeem Jeffries wrote, Dr. Lisa Cook is the first Black woman ever to serve on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Donald Trump is trying to remove her without a shred of credible evidence that she has done anything wrong. So even some Democrats have chastised him for turning to identity before the part of, trying to remove her without a shred of credible evidence. So Rotimi Adeoye, an MSNBC contributor, had this to say in response to Hakeem Jeffries. He said, for the love of God, please stop framing it this way. Yes, firing the first Black woman at the Fed is bad, but the core issue is presidential control over the economy like a strongman, risking real damage to Americans' finances. Identity is secondary to abuse of power. Identity first framing hands opponents an easy DEI strawman and buries the policy stakes. Voters feel rates, rent, car loans, and jobs start with threats to Fed independence and household costs, then add that ousting a barrier-breaking leader is wrong much later. So yeah, I feel like the stakes are as high as they have ever been in this country as far as authoritarianism and democracy. Everything is at stake. And I feel like we can't really overstate that at this point, because we already have the military in our streets. We already have the National Guard deployed in cities where the state never asked for it. He's already threatening to do that again in other states like Chicago and Baltimore. Like, we're at the level that progressives especially have been warning about for 10 years, it feels like, right? We saw this coming a mile and a half away, and everybody said that we were being hyperbolic and we were being dramatic and whatever. But here we have Hakeem Jeffries, who is at such a high level within the Democratic Party, and he's still playing games like this is 2016. Like, he hasn't learned that whatever the Democrats are saying, they need to be able to back this up with action. You can't just say something like, oh yeah, this is bad, we probably shouldn't fire this Black woman from the Fed. Like, yeah, nobody likes that, but that is not the bigger problem. That is not the bigger threat to our democracy right now. I feel like it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. if you have an existential threat to democracy, focus on that first, and then we can look into identity and feelings and things like that secondary, like maybe not tertiary, like that is a privilege to be able to have those high level conversations. But right now we have a more existential threat that we need to address first.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of reasons why he might have targeted her, and being an African-American woman might have been one of them. But if you focus on that, then you tilt the framing of this conversation in a way that is unproductive, counterproductive. Rotimi's totally right. I don't know this brother, but I think he couldn't be more right about this. It's not that you shouldn't care about that issue, but if you start with that, then it makes it seem like we're having a conversation about whether it was right or wrong to fire a black woman. But wait a minute, we don't even know what she did. Wait a minute, that's not even the issue. The issue is, does the president have the authority and power to do this? That is a monumental issue for our democracy. So if you confuse people with like, oh, can he fire a black woman? They might say, well, yeah, of course he could fire a black woman. I might not want him to, but he can. That's not the question. That's not the question. The question is, can he fire this person at all? And then if you say, like I did a minute ago, hey, look, why did he pick her instead of someone else? Okay, fine, but that is a much lower priority now, as we're in the throngs of a president trying to take away democracy from us and violating every law and rule and constitutional provision he could find, and Supreme Court ruling. Focus, focus. And the reason they can't is because they're so empty. Hakeem Jeffries has a playbook that they got from the 1990s. This is when we insert race in. Okay, race is on our side. So race, 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 culture wars. Jesus Christ, you incompetents. Okay, last thing, guys. I don't want Biden having this power any more than I want Trump having this power. I don't, because every politician, Democrat or Republican, is going to come in and want to lower the interest rates. Why? To juice up the economy. And if you think, oh, well, that's great. Why don't we just juice up the economy? Because it has a downside. And the knucklehead politicians think, both rightly and wrongly. Rightly, they think, well, maybe it has a downside 2 years from now when it creates inflation. But I only have 9 months left before the election, or 6 months left before the election. I'm going to lower the rates now. The economy is going to look better. You're going to reelect me. It's going to cause, or the next person in my party, it's going to cause problems down the line for you. But what do I care? I'm a greasy politician, right? Or even in Trump's case, since he knows nothing, he's like, oh, let's lower interest rates now and do tariffs, which is highly inflationary. But I'm a dumbass and I don't know that. And so I just want it, I want it. No, don't give politicians this kind of power. And lastly, this whole thing of not remembering that he hired Jerome Powell and not Joe Biden. Let's be honest, guys, if Joe Biden had made a mistake like that, we'd all be talking about how his uncle got eaten by cannibals and how he's lost his mind, right? But Trump makes mistakes like that 24/7. Joe Biden's so wrong for hiring Jerome Powell. Sorry, sir. You hired Jerome Powell. What? I want all power. I could be dictator. No, I'm not interested in this guy. So she should definitely stay. She should definitely fight. Go to the courts, adjudicate this. And the Supreme Court was crystal clear about this. So they should tell him to F off, and I hope they do. If they let him get away with this, then they're a useless court and we're all screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're so spot on about Trump and his motivations for wanting to wrangle the Fed under his control. I mean, he's been saying for a long time what he wants to happen, but we know these politicians, it's always short-term thinking, right? They always want to juice the numbers, especially somebody like Trump, who, as I said earlier, he really loves his ratings, he loves his numbers, even if he has to make them up to make him look better. But he wants to look good going into the midterms. He wants to like put things in place. It's all about him. It's not about the American people. He is not looking out for the average American person. He's looking out for himself, and he's looking out for his rich, wealthy friends. And he wants to make everything look really nice so that maybe the Republicans can stay in power a little bit longer. And so then maybe he can be empowered to do whatever he wants, dictator or not, going into 2028. And we'll see what our country looks like by then, I guess.
Yep. All right, we're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back with, good news, bad news. Donald Trump again tried to violate any sense of laws, constitution, etc. But good news is a judge slapped him down. So we'll explain when we come back. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to your member comments here. Emmanuel Delegado Gonzalez says, the only thing I look forward to these days is watching you. Thanks for doing everything you do. Well, that's an amazing thing to say. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wedge says, Anna plus CNN at 10. Yes. Winter Scoop says, Trump knows that lowering the interest rate will only help for a couple of months, but cause a depression. He doesn't care because he can manipulate the market during the crisis to make money. No, Winter Scoop, I disagree. I hear what you're saying, and yeah, they manipulate the markets when it goes up and down, right? I get it. But I just think you're giving Trump too much credit. He doesn't know anything. He knows that it juices up the economy. Does he know that it could create inflation when combined with tariffs? No. Too stupid, too lazy, doesn't know a thing. I swear to you, I know. Like, come on, how could the president not know that? He doesn't. He's a moron of epic proportions. So, because if you do that, if I'm the president and I just did tariffs, which are highly inflationary, I would not push the Federal Reserve to cut rates because I'd be worried to death about inflation. And you still have 3.5 years left to go in your term. No, doesn't make any sense at all. He's not smart. He's super dumb. Doesn't bother checking anything. But God damn it, he has this instinct for politics. Like he knows, go pick a fight on crime. Right? And Democrats will fall into your trap, and they're in the middle of falling into that trap as we speak. And he knows me. He's putting up giant pictures of himself all over Washington, just like a dictator would. But it's marketing. It's marketing. Trump. And the Democrats, meanwhile, are still genteel and I do declare. How much should we support Israel? Oh, God damn it, Jesus Christ! All right. Little Mac McGee says, the problem is that every person in an institution that actually has, or sadly perhaps scarily had, the ability to put a check on his power has utterly shirked their responsibility. The Congress and Supreme Court should be utterly and completely ashamed of themselves, but of course they aren't. They love their AIPAC bribes too much. Absolutely true about Congress, Supreme Court, and has been like 75% bad. The rest of the courts actually have done a pretty good job. So just a little bit of distinction there. Boomer Dragon Cat says, that makes me the angriest. We all knew, hyperbolic my ass. Buddy X Lacondo says, I've kept my retirement out of the stock market for a little while now. It was so frustrating to see it go up last week when the Fed said they may cut rates soon. I'm not mad I lost a little bit of money. I'm annoyed how the stock market works. The Fed saying that doesn't actually increase the value of anything, and continual increase in inflation means they shouldn't be cutting the interest rates anyway. So brother, I think you understand it better than they do. I think those guys are drunk on greed. And like the fact that the market's not getting affected by anything, massive debt, massive tax cuts that are, and then tariffs, and then messing around with the Federal Reserve, all of these things he's doing that are so risky, and they're like, I don't know, let's do buybacks, drive up the prices and inflate them. Don't shoot, I'm the goalkeeper says, you don't want to juice up the economy for the same reason you probably don't want to use steroids. Sure, you might look good for a while, but you also risk dropping dead. The economy is the same way. That's a good analogy, you're right. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys. We got a kind of good news update for you guys before we head back to bad news with the Democrats. But first, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors. So millions of seniors are on the wrong Medicare plan. That's just a fact, and it costs you a lot of money if you're on the wrong plan. Most Medicare agents recommend plans based on their highest commission rather than what's right for you. So they're looking to see, where can I get the highest commission? And they're not taking you into account, so that's a disaster. Chapter doesn't work for big insurance. They're independent and they work for you. We did some vetting here, and it is true. A lot of the other companies are ripping you off. That's why we went with Chapter. Chapter's the only one that reviews all plan options nationwide. If you're already on the right plan, they'll tell you, so boom, you have peace of mind. By doing what's right, they save people an average of $1,100. That is a lot of money. Call them today, 805-201-2275. 805-201-2275. 2275. It's fast and free. They can review your options in just 20 minutes. You could also go to askchapter.org/TYT. All right, yes, what's next?
All right, so some good news for balance. You're welcome. So a federal judge on Tuesday threw out an unusual lawsuit the Trump administration brought earlier this year against all 15 federal judges in Maryland. But the judge didn't just throw the suit out. He absolutely eviscerated Trump for even trying to bring it in the first place, calling it potentially calamitous. The lawsuit was an attempt by the DOJ to limit the court's powers in fast-moving immigration cases. So here's the reporting. The Justice Department sued all federal judges on the lower level District Court of Maryland in late June after the court's chief judge put in place a rule that would automatically and temporarily block the Trump administration from removing an immigration detainee from the US if the detainee had gone to court to challenge their removal. The Justice Department argued that the temporary pause impeded the president's authority to enforce immigration laws. This is actually relevant in the current case against Kilmar Abrego Garcia because the Trump administration wanted to deport him again immediately after his return from El Salvador. But Abrego Garcia filed a new case in Maryland, which triggered the protection from the court against immediate deportation. Plus, among the judges named in the lawsuit was Paul Lizinis, who in March found that the Trump administration illegally deported Abrego Garcia to El Salvador in the first place. Judge Thomas Cullen, who was appointed by Trump, laid into the administration, writing in his opinion that the Justice Department couldn't pursue a constitutional free-for-all. He argues that the government lacks standing to bring the challenge and that the Maryland judges are immune from these kinds of suits brought by the executive branch. He wrote, any fair reading of the legal authorities cited by defendants leads to the ineluctable conclusion that this court has no alternative but to dismiss. To hold otherwise would run counter to overwhelming precedent, depart from longstanding constitutional tradition, and offend the rule of law. Much as the executive fights the characterization, a lawsuit by the executive branch of government against the judicial branch for the exercise of judicial power is not ordinary. Whatever the merits of its grievance with the judges of the United States District Court for the District of Maryland, the executive must find a proper way to raise those concerns. And that's not all. In the footnotes of his ruling, Cullen also blasted the Trump administration for trying to smear the justice system overall. He said, over the past several months, principal officers of the executive and their spokespersons have described federal district judges across the country as left-wing, liberal, activist, radical, politically minded, rogue, unhinged, outrageous, overzealous, and unconstitutional, crooked, and worse. Although some tensions between the coordinate branches of government is a hallmark of our constitutional system, this concerted effort by the executive to smear and impugn individual judges who rule against it is both unprecedented and unfortunate. The Trump administration has already vowed to challenge Cullen's ruling. And Cenk, there was a lot of words that were thrown out there. But it's true. We've seen this time and time again. It's a lot of unprecedented stuff, a lot of unfortunate stuff, a lot of crooked stuff. They're just saying they have all these buzzwords that they use at the Trump administration, Trump and his spokespeople, everybody. They're all on message all the time. They know how to politicize anything that they don't like going in their favor. So, we're used to seeing this. We're used to seeing them attempt to weaponize the DOJ and attempt to weaponize various aspects of government. And they oftentimes have a lot of success doing that, unfortunately, and especially since the Supreme Court doesn't seem to be helping the American people very much either. But in this case, he has hit a roadblock. And so that is very encouraging. And, especially here, we're hearing kind of like a tone shift where at least this judge is just over it. He just feels tired. He's like, oh my God, like this again, like another left-wing radical liberal judge, whoever, we're tired of it. We get the playbook. we've all been playing the same game for so long, and it's like, why can't we get ahead of it? And this judge is just like, it ends with me here. Especially in the case with Abrego Garcia, that was such a nightmare for the Trump administration because they goofed it so badly. It was such an embarrassment to Trump and his administration, and to all these new policies he was going to roll out, and to ICE. It was a complete disaster. They tried desperately to spin it, and even that didn't work. They tried to say after the fact, well, he was a really dangerous criminal, so it's a good thing that we actually unconstitutionally deported him to El Salvador. But even that didn't really stick. And then once he finally came back, they tried to do it again, and they were unable to do so. So there are small victories to be parsed out from all of the chaos that we are currently experiencing here in this country. We're gonna get to some less fortunate stuff happening in a little bit, but I guess we can celebrate this in the meantime, Jake.
Yeah, for now. So look, do I want the president to be aggressive overall? Yeah, I do. So I think that Biden was not nearly aggressive enough. No Democrat ever is. They get into office and go, well, you're gonna have to push me to do even the simplest thing that we promised you. No, why? Why do I have to push you? I pushed by getting you elected. Now it's your job to do this. And Democrats are always like, nope, not gonna do it, not gonna do it. So they're super frustrating. And so when Trump comes in and fires off 1,000 executive orders, this, that, and the other thing, the country kind of likes it because it looks like there's action being taken, closing the border, going after undocumented criminals, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem with Trump is that he wants infinite power, and it's never enough. He has no respect for the rule of law, the Constitution, our democracy, or any of that. So it's the pendulum swings from the Democrats who barely tried to do anything ever, right, to Trump, who's like, oh, Constitution, what name so? I don't care. So this is a great example of it. What is this? Well, you're suing judges because you didn't like their decision? That's not a thing. You just made that up. What? That's why the judge is like, brother, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what do you want me to do here? It's like you're like saying, okay, I'd like to sue the dinosaurs on Mars. But there are no dinosaurs on Mars, and you have no jurisdiction over Mars, and I don't know what the hell you're talking about. What does it mean to sue these judges? There's a proper way that you go through a legal process. So you don't agree with a court, you appeal it. And then that gets appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court. That is normal. You going, I don't like those judges, I'm gonna sue them. It's not a thing, it's literally not a thing. So what is this? What do you want now? Some extra constitutional, meaning something past the Constitution, powers that are not defined at all and don't exist. So that's why the judge was like, this would lead to a constitutional free-for-all. And what that means is any president could come in and go, okay, since I'm not following the Constitution at all and I'm just making things up, then I just, you know what? I'm not just suing them, I'm putting them in jail. Mm-hmm. Why not? Because I'm making things up. There was no power to sue them, and there's no power to jail them. The minute you give me a power to sue them, I take the next level and the next level. And just like we talked about in the last story, the Supreme Court said, oh, okay, strip away the independence of anyone working in favor of the law and in favor of justice and the American people, and not for the president. So Justice Department, a whole bunch of bureaus that are looking to stop Wall Street crimes, white collar crimes, et cetera. We're gonna take that away, but well, we're so balanced. You know what? We're gonna preserve the independence of the Federal Reserve. So they give Trump 95% of what he wants, and probably that dumbass John Roberts, who like almost everybody in Washington keeps thinking, no, it'll go back to normal. I'm sure it'll go back to normal. I'm sure this will satiate him. And then what does Trump do? No, gobble, gobble, gobble up power. So now he wants to fire people in the Federal Reserve that he doesn't have the power to do. And he keeps telling you, I don't care about your stinking laws. I don't care about your stinking Constitution or your stinking democracy. I'm not gonna listen to any of these laws. Well, then you're not the president, because the president has to abide by the law. You're a wannabe dictator. And so, look, do I think that he's going to eventually actually go for it? Okay, he's got the military in the streets and just start ignoring the courts, just make voting near impossible. and to pretend he won the elections in 2026, his party did, etc. I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna just go and try to do all of that overnight. I think he's gonna try to slowly, and it's not that slow, by the way, boil the frog as he's doing now. And the question is, does our democracy hold? Does our system and does our constitution hold? So today's a good day because this is one of our courts holding and saying, no, you don't just get to make up the law. That's not a thing. You're an idiot, okay? So that is wonderful news. We have to have the courts hold, and yes, we all in the media have an enormously important job. Because if in the media you go, oh yeah, maybe the president gets to make up things that don't exist. And yeah, maybe he just has magic powers. Well, then people will get used to it and think, well, of course, you elect the president, he has magic powers. And by the way, he's already done that a million times. Oh, I laser-eyed documents, they're now unclassified. He once said, if I even think about it, but don't tell anyone, they're unclassified. Not a thing, not a thing, doesn't make any goddamn sense. So unfortunately, some people in media were like, oh, of course, your laser eyes, your brain eyes, and the brain lasers, and that's it. And you don't need any laws anymore. No. So it's our job in the media to say, hey, you know what? And by the way, you have to be credible and you have to be honest. If every time Trump sneezes, you call him a dictator, nobody's gonna believe you. They're gonna think you cry wolf. So you know where the line is. Don't exaggerate, don't do hyperbole. But when he actually crosses the line, we should all come down like a ton of bricks on him. And thank God this judge did.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm still laughing at the idea of Martian jurisdiction. So thanks for that, Cenk.
No
but like we all learn as children that throwing tantrums is not the way to get what you want. But Trump, that's what he does, and he gets what he wants most of the time, And so I don't know how this is going to help people who are trying to teach their kids, how to act in public. But he's not a great role model, and I think most Americans can agree with that. But to your point, Cenk, about powerful leaders. I get it because I'm tired of getting nothing but empathy from our Democratic leaders. It's like the equivalent of when Republicans offer their constituents thoughts and prayers whenever they want to pretend like they're doing their jobs, but they're not actually doing their jobs. They say, you know what? Thoughts and prayers, we are with you. That is so sad what's happening to you. You're the one in power to actually do something about it. And the same thing with the Democrats, it's the same thing. It just looks a little bit different. It sounds a little bit different. What they give you is, outrage on Twitter, or on X, whatever. And, we work in the media. We're the ones who talk about these things. We're the ones who commentate on these things. They're the ones who actually have the power to do something about the things that are happening in this country. I don't need them on my level. I need them off of the social media, and I need them in Congress or wherever it is doing the work and actually making something happen. It's like what you were saying, the Democrats, they roll over so often because they're afraid that things are gonna look one way or another politically, right? Like, oh, I don't wanna take this stance. We're gonna talk about that in our next story a little bit more, but it's like, when is the time? When are you finally gonna say, oh, you know what? Yeah, we should do something about this. Even something that is so seemingly innocuous as Trump plastering his face all over Washington, D.C. It's not. We know what that is. We have seen it in history, right? Most presidents, they don't do that. This is all so unprecedented. And just the fact that we know what it is and we're pretending that we don't. It's like, are there any adults in the room or anybody who's just gonna call a thing for what it is who is actually in government, right? That is our job to call it out. They need to do something about it, so.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we've got the Democrats and their usual fecklessness and corruption. I mean, the corruption is really sickening. So DNC had a comical vote. So of course they chose corruption almost in unison. Of course, good Democratic voters pushed them in the right direction, but they won't be pushed. They won't be pushed. No, they demand corruption. They demand losing. Bunch of losers. Anyway, we'll talk about that. And then Charlie Kirk has an idea on how to turn Taylor Swift conservative. All right, brace for impact. We'll do that when we return.
If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. Electoral Dysfunction Vanguard writes in, Trump not a dictator, ask DC. They got more troops on standby than some war zones that week. In fact, he's the only one who needed the National Guard to clear DC for a photo op with an upside down Bible. Okay, so technically it wasn't upside down, it was just in the wrong direction. We once got a fact check on that. The only fact check where they claimed, you have a near 100% record on fact checks. They're like, no, you guys said the Bible's upside down when it was just like reverse direction. Okay, anyway, to your main point, of course, that why did I fight so hard against Donald Trump when Kamala Harris turned out to be a corporate stooge, and I can't stand robotic, actors like her? Because the guy kept saying over and over again, I want to use the military to take over the streets. I don't. If I lose an election, I don't believe in democracy. I want to stay in power. I'm just going to lie about everything. I'm going to lie, and I'm going to take as much power as I can. Why would I put that guy back in charge? So you're right. Of course, this is deeply problematic. He's wanted to do it the whole time. Kenyatta Gaines says, I think in 2028, Trump is going to try to run for a third term, splitting the Republican base in half and setting up a January 6th part 2. Again, he does this all the time, guys. That's why I'm so concerned about his dictator talk now, because he goes, I could run for a third term. I could. I'm not going to, but I might, but I could. We're looking into it. But when he says that means, yeah, I'm going to try it. If I get clowned, then I'll pretend that I was just trolling or joking or no big deal and I didn't mean it and I back away. But if it looks like it's working, goddamn right, I'm gonna run for a third term. And why do I even need to run? I'm just gonna make myself the president. Okay, once the military is all over America and I tread all over you, then I can do whatever the hell I want. I took away all your rights already. So no, the guy's authoritarian by nature. I said it a billion times and we were right about that. So in Liberty and Guns We Trust said, as a libertarian, I'm against this authoritarian garbage. However, from an election standpoint, if Trump can keep the border shut and strong economy by next election, JD Vance / Republicans will probably win. So guys, unfortunately, people do oftentimes give away their liberty for fake security. So you're right to warn about that, and you're right, and Democrats should understand that. Instead, they don't, and they're like, there is no crime in these. Guys, stop saying that. Just address the crime in your own way, okay? Instead of saying that it isn't an issue, because you're accidentally helping him. Thank you for that logical comment. Make it make sense. As if firing this person is taking away democracy, I'll be honest, Cenk, I don't ever remember voting for anyone on the Fed, and if Trump and Powell if Trump hired Powell, shouldn't he be able to fire him? What am I missing? So brother, you're making an interesting point, and if there's an ally of mine who's president, we should have a national conversation about the Federal Reserve's independence, okay? Because there's excellent points on both sides. So on the one hand, if you let the politicians control it, they're gonna control it in a maniacal, stupid way, it's gonna crash the economy. On the other hand, who currently controls it? The bankers do. The top bankers control the Federal Reserve, and that doesn't make sense to me either. But you can't just say, I'm not having a national conversation, I'm not passing a new law, I'm just changing it in my mind. That's not democracy. We need to have that conversation. All right, we'll be back.
Sexual anarchy.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys, and Franfern14, thank you for joining on the website. Much love. TYT.com/join. You're gonna get a couple of months off if you get annual membership. So check it out, TYT.com/join. All right, what's next, Yaz?
All right, let's just get into this next story, and then we'll talk about it.
One thing all of us in this room agree on is that the crisis in Gaza is urgent. This resolution is focused on the humanitarian crisis and makes clear that it must be addressed as the emergency that it is. As I've always said, we have to center humanity in this conversation.
All right, the Democratic National Committee met in Minneapolis today to discuss ways forward, but the party was unable to overcome opposing stances on Israel and Gaza within its own ranks. So now the question of Israel is threatening to break apart the Democratic Party. So on yesterday's show, Cenk, I know you guys covered Israel's double bombing of a hospital in Gaza. The famine in Gaza has been declared by international humanitarian agencies a deliberate act of genocide by Israel against the Palestinian people. And even public support for Israel is lower than it has ever been on both sides of the political aisle. But the US Democratic Party still cannot and will not break from Israel. And we are starting to see those cracks play out in real time. We have an election coming up next year, and savvy voters can't just look at who the Dem is on the ballot. You have to look at who is the Dem, but also are they an AIPAC Dem? Because that is going to be a significant distinction going forward. We already saw that it was a big factor in the 2024 election. So what do you think, Cenk? Will Israel finally break the Dems?
Yeah, so look guys, the voters are so important in this context. So we're gonna get back to the Democratic voters that can maybe fix this thing, and I'll tell you how a little bit later in the video. And we have to, and we're not blaming the voters here. In fact, the voters are crystal clear. 8% of Democrats think that we should continue to support Israel's military actions in Gaza. 92% say no, and that was in a poll in July. That number might be even higher now that famine's been declared, and we keep seeing video after video of them starving children to death, killing people live on air, etc. Total, utter lawlessness, but none of that matters. And even your opinion, my opinion doesn't matter. What it matters is this is the Democratic National Committee. They're supposed to represent the Democratic voters. And the Democratic voters are crystal clear here. 92-8, you can't ask for more. What do you need, 94-6? Doesn't make any sense, that's it, super clear. So of course, the DNC voted against their own voters, against 92% of their own voters. Why? I have a very simple explanation. By the way, I read a number of mainstream media articles about this, and none of them even mentioned this as a factor. Not even a factor. Corruption, they get money from the Israeli lobby. They almost all get money from the Israeli lobby. That is a legalized bribe. Here's money from Israel or from Israel supporters, and you are to do what Israel commands you. And they're like, oh, this is a conundrum. I mean, 92% of our voters want it. And they're like, a conundrum, that's a good one. We never do anything for our voters. Why would we change it now? High five. So the corrupt crooks at the DNC are like, no. Israel, we love you. We're so worried about the anti-Semitism. God, what do you mean anti-Semitism, brother? They're murdering Palestinians right in front of our eyes. They're starving Muslims to death. How about Islamophobia? Are you worried about discrimination against Muslims when Israel goes, I don't care about Muslim lives? I'm gonna slaughter them and take their land? Isn't that bigoted against Muslims? Now shut up, you didn't bribe us, shut up. I'm only concerned about, not Israel, of course, it's actually Israel. They're not concerned about anti-Semitism at all, they're giant liars, okay? But they can't say Israel. They can't say, oh, my pockets are stuffed full of cash from the Israeli lobby. So they say, oh, I'm so concerned about anti-Semitism. I'm so worried about bigotry. Oh, bigotry against Muslims, slaughter them, slaughter. Here, in fact, here's money. I'm gonna make it rain so you can murder as many Muslims as you like. And my voters don't want it? Who cares? Who cares? I'm a corrupt Democrat. That's what they just said to you. Okay, and so, and then what drives me crazy, we'll talk about this more later, is that then a bunch of Democratic ass kissers who are hosts on cable news and elsewhere will try to convince Democratic voters, no, Democratic leaders should betray you. They should never listen to you. And if you don't bow your head to a bunch of crooks, you're supporting Trump. No, why don't you clean up your own house so you can beat Trump, so you can beat Republicans, so you can actually represent your own voters. But for Democrats, that is a bridge too far. Like if they see this video, they're like, outrageous. You're telling me that I'm not supposed to take those legalized bribes? Do you know how much they're offering? They're offering hundreds of millions of dollars. We're gonna get fat on that. and our greed for that outweighs our concern about stupid Muslim lives. Slaughter away, starve away, okay, as long as I get the cash. These Democratic leaders have destroyed the Democratic Party. They have betrayed Democratic voters, and they have betrayed this country. So yes, tell them more about the details, and I'm gonna come back and kick their ass again.
Absolutely. Okay, so the DNC panel attempted to address the issue and the very wide split within the party. The panel took up 2 resolutions related to Israel and Gaza, and they advanced neither of them. Here is Ken Martin explaining his more moderate resolution. Take a look.
Thousands and thousands of innocent lives have been lost in this conflict. It has now become commonplace, unacceptably, to accept civilian lives as a casualty of conflict. One innocent life lost is one too many. My resolution calls for the secure and unrestricted flow of aid to Gaza, which is absolutely essential, and is the position of 44 Senate Democrats who signed a letter recently calling for a large-scale expansion in aid. The resolution also recognizes the complexity of the conflict in the Middle East and calls for a long-term peace through a 2-state solution negotiated through direct bilateral negotiations.
Okay, yes, I gotta jump in. I gotta jump in. You have to understand what kind of a lie that is and what kind of a trick that is, okay? He says one too many innocent lives is too many, but it's complex. But wait, you just said it was one too many is not, so we have to stop it, right? We said, well, no, we don't have to stop it. We have to give Gaza aid while they're being slaughtered. So don't stop the slaughter, don't stop sending them money, continue the slaughter, but as they're getting slaughtered, help them a little bit around the edges. Do you know that that's so uncontroversial that Donald Trump is in favor of it? So like they're pretending that they care. That's what makes me sick. When he talks about, we have to center humanity. I don't know what that means. So there's garbage talk about centering things. Well, where's your humanity? Where's your humanity? They're starving them to death. Where's your goddamn humanity? Oh, no. Oh, what we should do is, he said it's unacceptable. Then he said we should accept it. If you fund a genocide, then you are accepting a genocide. That's not complicated at all. But he says, yeah, it's complicated because we're all getting bribed. And so if I want my bribes and I want you to, and I want to pretend that I'm doing something, I'll call for a 2-state solution. Brother, we've been calling for a 2-state solution for 50 goddamn years. That doesn't mean anything. How do you get to a 2-state solution? How do you get there? You get there by applying leverage. We've applied infinite pressure to Hamas. Good on Hamas, good that we applied pressure to Hamas. Not good that we slaughtered innocent Palestinians and did collective punishment, right? But certainly we've applied an enormous amount of pressure to the Palestinians. I don't know that they could stand one more ounce of pressure. The Israelis, nothing. No. We'll always fund you. We'll always rob the American taxpayers and say, go back to work. Israel doesn't have enough money. You're gonna take your money and we're gonna give it to Israel. You keep slaughtering. Then you tell me it's unacceptable? No, you're saying you should accept it. And by the way, that moderate proposal was only put up to defeat the one that actually said take money away from Israel. That's the one that's real and would have an effect. So the whole moderate proposal was a trick in the first place. But here's my favorite part of that, okay? Then after the trick is over, and I knew Yaz was gonna say, but after they do the vote, and they're like, okay, good, your resolution was defeated. Well, we're taking ours away anyway. Our masters called and said, how dare you? How dare you even do fake things that seem to slightly chastise us? Take away that resolution. And Ken Martin was like, I'm so sorry, Israel. I'm so sorry, Israel. And they took away the resolution. Okay, just please, if you're not gonna do anything and you're gonna be complicit in a genocide and you're gonna say the Democratic Party should fund ethnic cleansing, which is exactly what you're saying. It's exactly what you're saying. When you say that, please spare us. Don't insult our intelligence and say, I have done so much. I did a fake resolution that declared absolutely nothing, and then I took it away. Shut up. All right, back to you, Yes.
Yeah, it was a wildly unproductive meeting that they had. So here's more from the Washington Post about the more progressive proposal. Panel members voted down a proposal from a new Gen Z member of the DNC that asked the party to support an arms embargo and suspension of military aid to Israel. They approved another, backed by DNC Chairman Ken Martin, that called for a ceasefire, unrestricted humanitarian aid to Gaza civilians, and a two-state solution to the conflict. But Martin ultimately pulled his resolution, saying the party is dividing and vowing to create a committee that would bring solutions back.
We're gonna bring solutions back. When are we gonna bring it back, Ken? We're gonna bring it back in 2 years, 20 years? After they've slaughtered almost everyone in Gaza? When are we gonna bring it back, Ken? You're not gonna bring it back. What you're gonna bring back is tons and tons of money from AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, and every Israeli lobby group, and you're gonna sell out 92% of Democratic voters, just like you did today. Okay, so please stop pretending, and I don't want to, I'm sorry guys, hey, I have an apology for you. This is important. I said to you before that Ken Martin was a progressive from Minnesota. I'm so sorry, I take that back completely. I was totally wrong. This is just another guy who's just a part of a cog in the machine. Oh, where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? Israel, we know, yes, please slaughter away. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back with solutions. You're not coming back with anything. So just the most useless leadership. I'm not just talking about Ken Martin, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton. Oh, we know, we're so smart. We're gonna beat Trump. It's gonna be easy. It's a guarantee. We know how to win. Progressives don't know how to win. Oh, they try to serve the voters. Boo! We serve Israel and the corporations. And how's that worked out for you, dumbasses? You lost to Trump twice. The guy doesn't have an IQ above 70. Oh, no, we got this figured out. We'll bring solutions to you many years later, but meanwhile, we'll keep kissing donor ass. And that's what you're doing, Ken. And that's what everyone at the DNC is doing, except those brave, wonderful young people who suggested the infinitely better resolution. Yes.
Yeah, so there was that Gen Z member of the DNC. So her resolution, there was actually an attempt to amend the embargo resolution that she put forth, and that was Allison Minnerly. She's a 26-year-old from Florida. The proposed compromise was to specify an embargo on offensive weapons as opposed to defensive weapons. And that was, I guess, to appeal the people who are always like, oh, Israel has a right to defend itself. But even that didn't get through. And this is hurting the Democratic Party in a very, very real way. Despite their efforts to not acknowledge the issue, many Democratic voters have told the party that they specifically withheld votes from Democratic candidates, especially Kamala Harris in 2024, due to their stance on Israel. And the polling does show this. So public opinion has moved since the war began on October 7th, 2023, when the Palestinian militant group Hamas launched a deadly surprise attack on Israel. Americans have grown less supportive of Israel's military action in response, and Gallup polling in July found that support among Democrats has dropped to 8%. And I do want to point out that since October 7th, I think a lot more Americans have become educated on what has been going on in Gaza, not just since October 7th, but for the last several decades. So here's more reporting. Democrats are trying to bounce back from a difficult election in which disagreements over the Middle East flared up. In Michigan, a critical swing state that could also play a leading role in Democrats' 2028 presidential primaries, some 13% of primary voters last year cast votes of uncommitted. The vote was part of a protest movement designed to rebuke the Biden administration as being too accommodating of Israel. But of course, the Democrats still have not learned their lesson. And instead of going after what the voters want, they're instead chasing big dollar donors. Presumably AIPAC is one of those. So as the people move against Israel and the party sticks with it, there is an increasing divide between party leaders and voters. For instance, the party still has not endorsed Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York, despite his winning the Democratic primary against not one, but two establishment Democratic figures. And in North Carolina, a state where Dems are hoping to be competitive in the midterms, state Democrats in North Carolina just voted to condemn Israel for apartheid rule. But seemingly unmovable, the DNC bylaws state that it will consider resolution proposals that are consistent with the party platform. and the party platform as of last year is that they address the quote unquote extreme suffering in Gaza, but maintain a quote unquote ironclad commitment to Israel. So that is what we're dealing with, and it is baffling. I understand Cenk's anger here that they refuse to just toe them to listen to their voters, right? And we are being as clear as we can possibly be on this issue. There should be no confusion as to what the voters want. And the Minerly from Florida, she acknowledged that, some Democrats are acknowledging that the voters are turning one way, that the tides are shifting, that the usual rhetoric doesn't go anymore. But there's also the fact that, as I said earlier, people are more educated on what has been going on between Israel and Gaza for since 1947. And we also are seeing for ourselves with social media and, we have access to things that we didn't have access to before. We can see for ourselves what is happening over there. Also, the international agencies are saying this is a genocide that is happening. A famine doesn't just happen in a war-torn area. A famine is something that is inflicted upon a people by the people who are trying to exterminate them, right? So we know all these things, we see all these things. The American public, especially Democratic voters, are not having it anymore. And then even on the Republican side, right? They're not a fan of what's going on either. They might have different reasons. I don't think they care as much about, Muslim lives that are being wasted away in Gaza. But they don't like that the United States continues to send money over to Israel, whether it's for defense or offense or whatever. We're sending so much money to this country in the Middle East, and for what? And they have better rights than we do over here. They have access to better healthcare. They have access to better education over there. And what are we dealing with over here? So Cenk, I'll give you the last word on that.
Yeah, I'm going to give our members the last word because look, it's enraging that they're sending money to a country in the middle of committing a genocide, ethnic cleansing, and starvation, mass collective punishment. I mean, it's just disgusting in every way imaginable, but that's not even the biggest issue here. The biggest issue is the Democratic voters are crystal clear, 92%. And the Democratic leaders say, F our voters. We hate our voters, and we're never going to do anything you want. We prefer our donors because they bribe us legally so much more than our voters. And we don't mind losing every election as long as we get the donor cash and all our consultants get rich and we all get giant houses in Fairfax and McLean all around DC. We don't care about losing. We're gonna betray our voters at every turn. So that's why turn to the voters here. These are our paying members on TYT.com. Thrilled to give them voice, which the Democratic Party doesn't. Mongoose Dragon says, go F yourselves, DNC. I'm a damn lib says, I'm feeling like Anna, politically homeless. Because the Democrats, you're like, hey, I'd like to join the Democrat. I'm on the left, I'd like to be a Democrat. They're like, give me money. I'm like, wait, what? I don't have money, I'm just a regular average voter. Then shut up, I'm gonna listen to the donor class instead. All right, okay. And then finally, Dragon Tree says, the Democrats, politicians hate their base. They just want Republicans to accept and love them. We are leaderless, and that depresses me so much because it's worse than being leaderless. Your leaders are betraying you at every turn, And so that's why it's, as I described in my book, Justice Coming, it's good cop, bad cop. So you think the good cop's on your side? You have a bunch of liars on MSNBC and a bunch of kiss asses all over online video going, oh yeah, no. If you kiss Democratic ass enough, that'll work. That'll defeat Trump. No, it hasn't worked. They've been lying to you 2,000 times over. They're doing propaganda. You know what would win for Democrats? Actually being on the left. Actually doing the super popular proposals that your voters want. That's what would work, you idiots, you corrupt crooks. We all hate you. That's not because we hate Democrats. We are Democrats. We hate you for betraying Democratic voters. You're not our leaders. You're not at all our leaders. You are the followers of a bunch of rich donor class guys, whether it's foreign governments, it's defense contractors, it's oil companies. All you do is serve them, and you disgust me. Okay, God damn it, we're out of time. I really wanted to do the next story. All right. We can't. All right, we'll do it later. All right, Yaz, you're amazing. Everybody check her out at Rebel HQ.
Of course.
All right, we'll be back with more important news.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one. In a media landscape poisoned by corporate influence, only one show stands apart from the rest, The Young Turks. As the longest running daily news show on the internet, The Young Turks is an impactful voice of unfiltered truth, one you can trust to deliver the daily news with authenticity and honesty. For nearly 2 decades, TYT has been breaking the mold of media. We're not here to echo the powerful or the elite, we're here to challenge them. Our mission is to give you accurate news, fight the establishment, and cover stories that mainstream media keeps you in the dark about, which matter to your everyday life. We've remained a leader in online news because of our established credibility with an engaged audience looking for alternative media that represents the real concerns of everyday Americans. Listen to The Young Turks, a news show that only answers to you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. Mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
Have you been drinking anything today?
No, I hadn't drank in 3 years.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Until today.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Michael Schur with you guys. Got a lot more news, so Michael, just hit it.
Yeah, just take a look at this.
Earlier today in the Oval Office, Donald Trump looked at the assembled cameras and asked for me personally to say, Mr. President, can you do us the honor of protecting our city? Instead, I say, Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here. Your remarks about this effort over the last several weeks have betrayed a continuing slip in your mental faculties and are not fit for the auspicious office that you occupy.
Yeah, that was Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois responding to President Trump, flanked there by members of Congress. See Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth. See Raj Krishnamurthy there. He was responding to Donald Trump's threats that he was going to send the National Guard into the city of Chicago, among other places. His comments came during that press conference yesterday, where he stood alongside business leaders, religious leaders, and other community organizers. We'll hear more from him shortly. But Cenk, first I want to say what happened to me when I heard that. And I said, okay, the race for the Democratic nomination is on.
Yeah, you're right. There's two different issues here, guys. One is Donald Trump's authoritarian tendencies and his needless desire to bring military into our streets and turn us into a banana republic. And so there's a half an issue on the Democratic response that is substantive. And I don't want to let that go. We're going to talk about that as well. But the other big issue is the Democratic primary in 2028. So Gavin Newsom tried to go and talk to the right wing after the election was over. That strategy didn't work for him. He changed strategies, and now his strategy is attack Trump as much as you can. So now that's forcing the other potential candidates like Pritzker to then switch over their strategy and go, oh yeah? I'll kick him out of Chicago more than you'll kick him out of LA. I'm even tougher on him. So that's also part of what you're seeing here.
Yeah, there's no question. And again, I'm glad you said it's substantive, because we don't want to just be cynics about it here. Pritzker and Newsom are motivated by everything that motivates us. And so the fact that he's doing this, he's doing it on substance. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. And he's responding to a president in a way that more people should respond. It just does so happen to be that he wants to be president as badly as Gavin Newsom. So yesterday, Trump, the president, held a Q&A where he made threats to send troops to Maryland and Chicago, and it's not confirmed if he will actually send the National Guard to Chicago, but CNN explained why that would be a lot different than what Trump did, you'll remember, earlier this year in Los Angeles and currently in Washington, D.C. When he sent the Guard into Los Angeles, says CNN, Trump at least had the patina of an excuse that he was protecting federal buildings following demonstrations that erupted in June. Washington, D.C. is a federal district and affords Trump significant leeway within limits he may soon test to wield power. But a decision to defy Pritzker, who commands the Illinois National Guard, and to federalize reservists in the absence of an unusual emergency would represent another step toward strongman rule. Title 10 of the U.S. Code allows the president to deploy the reservists in the case of invasion, to suppress rebellion, or to execute the laws of the United States. None of those conditions seem to accurately describe the current situation in Chicago, Baltimore, or Washington, D.C. So going back to Pritzker, he also had stern words for the entire Trump administration and claimed that if the Guard is deployed, that he isn't going to forget those who were complicit. Here's J.B. Pritzker.
To the Trump administration officials who are complicit in this scheme, to the public servants who have forsaken their oath to the Constitution to serve the petty whims of an arrogant little man, to any federal official who would come to Chicago and try to incite my people into violence as a pretext for something darker and more dangerous, we are watching and we are taking names.
The Illinois governor also stated that a deployment of troops in Chicago was not needed because crime was not rampant in the city.
Look at the people assembled before you today, behind me. This is a full cross-section of Chicago's leaders from the business world, the faith community, law enforcement, education, community organizations, and more. We sometimes disagree on how to effectively solve the many challenges that our state and our city face on a daily basis. But today we are standing here united, in public, in front of the cameras, unafraid to tell the president that his proposed actions will make our jobs harder and the lives of our residents worse.
And while there is certainly still crime in Chicago, of course, the murder rate is down 32% to 188 in the first half of the year, the lowest in more than a decade in, as you saw there, the city of big shoulders. According to the Chicago PD, the number of murders has declined over the past 4 years, but other data does show that misdemeanor thefts have gone up by 61% in the last 4 years, and motor vehicle thefts have gone up by 79% in that same time frame. But yesterday, Trump wasn't just concerned about crime. He also took the time to call Governor J.B. Pritzker a slob. And Governor Pritzker responded to that comment by saying, "It takes one to know one on the weight question." And the president, of course, himself is not in good shape. So he ought to respond to that from me. Cenk, we have some feisty governors now. I think that's exactly the kind of democratic interaction that you've been wanting to hear, to a degree, at least anyway.
Yeah, I still think it's relatively mild. It's taken 20 years, but good. I'm glad to have it. And guys, it's on a super important issue, okay? So if you think, look, let me give you both sides of this. So Brandon Johnson was on MSNBC, he's the mayor of Chicago. Scarborough asked him multiple times, how about more cops? Obviously, Chicago's got a crime problem. They do, right? They've historically had one, they continue to have one today. And he dodged that question over and over again. And he said, yeah, maybe social services is better. Okay, I think he's gonna get thrown out of office. So you could say, oh no, Cenk, you're wrong. There's no crime problem and social services will fix it. Okay, one, the American people don't agree with you. Two, my guess is soon Brandon Johnson will find out that the people of Chicago don't agree with him, okay? So now, is the correct answer to Chicago is a persistent crime problem, military in the streets? No, that's the pendulum swinging way too far and for no reason. First of all, because of the laws of this country, the military cannot do a policing role in the country. So he's asking them to do something illegal and unconstitutional. So now there's a difference between, this is important, there's a difference between DC and the other cities. Because in DC, you can federalize. Now, even that has limits, significant limits, and you're supposed to ask Congress for permission, etc. But at least you could do it initially under a theoretical emergency. For the other cities, you have no such power. So if you send the Marines or the National Guard into the middle of Chicago, they can't arrest anyone. So it's useless unless you're doing an authoritarian takeover. And again, this is like, what drives me crazy about first of all sides, because everybody's totally blind. They don't realize they're in their bubbles. So in the Democratic bubble, no, there is no crime and Americans don't have any problem with it. But the polling shows that the Americans, voters do have a problem with crime. They do have a problem. So you should try to address it instead of ignoring it like an idiot, because that's not gonna help you win elections. It's gonna help people like Donald Trump. And it's gonna lead to the pendulum swinging too far. Now, if you're on the right, my God, man, please go burn your "Don't Tread on Me" flags. Because apparently, first of all, you're allowed to. Okay? Second of all, you should, because you never meant it. The guys who said "Don't tread on me" are letting tanks roll into the middle of our cities and tread, like literally have tank tires going over their "Don't tread on me" flags. So no, we didn't ask for authoritarianism. Maybe some of you did. Maybe you hated democracy all along. You hated our freedoms all along. I don't know. That's for you to decide. But that's not what freedom looks like. So there's a simple answer. Some more cops, see if that works. And if that doesn't work, try a different thing. Mamdani's gonna try something slightly different in New York. All the mayors should try different things to bring crime down. And is crime at this point some sort of epidemic? No, Trump is going to crime because it's one of the few issues he has left where Democrats are not as popular. I have a crazy idea. Why don't you get popular on crime? And the way to get popular on crime doesn't necessarily just mean more cops. It could mean a variety of different things to bring crime down. And it doesn't mean beating up black people and Latinos or shooting them without asking. That doesn't help crime prevention at all. Why don't 100 Democratic mayors try like hell in different ways to bring down crime and then come up with 18 amazing ways to do it and then have that go to all the cities? And then if you're a Republican, what do you want them to do? So you want them to break the law and you want them to have military in the streets, look like a third-rate country, and not listening to our Constitution. Okay, if you say that, then you're just told on yourself. You never believed in America in the first place.
Yeah, I'm a broken window guy on crime like you are. I think the crime that affects, the misdemeanor thefts going up, the auto theft going up is a terrible thing for any city. And I think that what it does is it historically, criminologists will tell you this, that it creates higher crime rates in some of the crimes that are worse, and it also creates a perception in a community that things are rampant and out of control. The fact that the murder rate has gone down in Chicago by that much, I think is exceptionally good news. And so the city is doing something right on some scores, or the economy or whatever it is that has created those cycles is working. There's nothing wrong with saying that you need community services, but you cannot say it as a Democrat in the same breath while you say we don't need more cops. You can have both. And Chicago is a city where community service, look, they sent a community activist to the White House, Chicago. So community activism is a centerpiece to making Chicago better. It might be unique among American cities in that way. I don't think it is, but certainly in a celebrated way, I think that it is. But what you said, Cenk, is absolutely right. The whole notion that these people who are talking about crime and don't tread on me are allowing this blatant breaking, not just of local law, but of constitutional law, state law and constitutional law, doesn't have the right to do it, hasn't done it, but let's see what happens when it happens.
Yeah, the last thing is, what happened to states' rights? Because the right wing told me, oh, states' rights, the federal government better not mess with the state government. And here you are messing with state governments, local governments, etc. So guys, look, both sides can pretend to be tough guys. I don't really care about that. What I care about is solving problems, okay? So in terms of the politics, yeah, I mean, it's so, okay, super last thing. It's so discouraging to me that it took 20 years for Democrats to realize you're supposed to fight the other side. And now, yeah, they're doing it on important issues, but it's obvious that they're trying out different theatrics and optics.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, it might help my career if I look like I'm fighting harder. Yeah, that's true, but you know what would help your career a lot? If you actually were fighting harder. So on this one, fine, they're doing as much as they can, right? And Gavin's doing a great job of trolling Trump. And even if you don't like Gavin, it doesn't matter. Just from a political analysis point of view, he is doing a good job with it. It is working, and his numbers are going way up, okay, within Democratic voters. But if you're other Democratic politicians, even if you don't care about anyone but yourself, learn from what they're doing, and please trust me. And I'm telling you, this will help your ego. You'll feel great about it, okay? And your status will be improved. Your poll numbers will be improved. Please trust me. Actually fight for your own voters, including on economic issues like paid family leave, getting money out of politics, etc. And they'll love you for it. This is not that complicated. But for now, we have, okay, no military in the streets, good. Everything else, they'll have to learn that it might help their careers so that they could begin to do it.
And I believe that these governors are also genuinely offended by what this president's trying to do. So career help or not, I mean, politicians, that's their career. So they're always going to be thinking about politics and staying where they are. And so while it's easy to be cynical about that, it's also part of what they have to do. So it's a tough place for them to be. In this case, I think both governors are responding very organically and very with real genuine force to how upset they are by what Trump is doing. And Newsom is continuing, Cenk, that online trolling that you were talking about just a moment ago. He recently even opened a store, an online store called the Patriot Shop. And my favorite thing about this logo is the undercard there, the greatest merchandise ever made. I mean, it is just the best troll ever. Trump, who refers to his followers as patriots and the only patriots that are out there. And this goes to what we've been talking about for years, Cenk, as Democrats taking back the flag. Maybe start by taking the word patriot back. He sells them red-themed, cheaply made merchandise, does Trump. But this store includes these things: a Newsom was right about everything hat that you see there on the left, and a Trump is not hot tank top, which is perfect for your MAGA friends, and a $100 Bible marked as sold out. You can't even get them anymore. Well, That was never actually for sale. But of course, that's making fun of the fact that Trump himself was selling Bibles. She has a shirt called The Chosen One, where he is surrounded by Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan with the angel wings there, and Tucker Carlson play on some of that. I don't know that artist's name offhand, but it's pretty wonderful the way he's teasing that. His account posted to X after the shop opened. Wow, we have now sold over, all caps, of course, 100,000 of the best products ever made. If you hate the Patriot shop, you hate America. Thank you, man. Cenk, this is kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, they should have been having this fun all along.
But the point is,
good,
right? And
good.
Don't decry it because it's happening now. But
no, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. More of this. Okay. Right. So last thing, guys, back to substance. Why are we so concerned? So I'm going to show you a clip of Donald Trump from today, and then we'll talk about it. Let's watch.
But then he goes on television and says, "Oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator." And a lot of people are here. So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime.
Yeah, no, I'm worried about it. Because whenever Trump starts with, like, a lot of people are saying, no, I'm not saying it. Right. I used to joke like that on the show all the time. I'd say like, oh, people are saying in the streets how good looking I am. That was a joke, right? For him, he does this, well, I'm not saying I want a third term, but a lot of people are saying I should have a third term. I mean, a lot of people are saying I won the 2020 election, then it turns into I did win the 2020 election, right? And so now when he's saying like, well, I mean, a lot of people are saying they want a dictator to stop crime. You should be deeply concerned.
When I was going around the country with Zephyr this past election, we were speaking to MAGA voters, Cenk. You remember there was one day or 2 days that I was asking people, Trump was saying he was going to be a dictator on day one. I was asking people, would you rather have President Biden or Trump as a dictator? And to a person almost, they said to me, and I can't think I don't want to say it absolutely, but I can't think of one person who disagreed. They said, no, we need a dictator. Trump as a dictator. Unanimous that they wanted Trump as a dictator. Some people went so far as to say this country needs a dictator. We really should have a dictator. And you can go on YouTube and you can find those at the Young Turks. I don't know how you find them because I wouldn't know how to find them myself, but they're there.
They are there.
And you can see his followers saying that they want him to be a dictator, and here he is.
So guys, like, is there a portion of MAGA that has wanted that all along? Well, that was before the election, well before the election. So they're on tape, they're not hiding it. That portion definitely exists. Then there's a portion of Trump voters who don't want a dictator. They didn't vote for a dictator, and that sounds nuts to them, right? That portion has to speak up, okay? So the Democrats are opposed to dictators, great, wow. Like we cleared that bar, okay? But I'm proud of it. I don't know anyone on the left who wants a dictator. I know a lot of people on the right who do, right? Okay, but you can say they're extreme. Well, then if you're saying they're extreme, show me you're not. Say, yeah, you know what, I voted for Trump, but no, I didn't vote for military in the streets and a banana republic and violating the Constitution over and over again. No, I didn't ask for a dictator, and I'm against this. If you don't say that, well, then then we have our answer. Then don't complain. Oh my God, I can't believe Democrats would say that we're authoritarian or fascist, etc. Guys, we're in the middle of that decision right now as a country. If we all push back forcefully, Trump, my guess is, and let's hope I'm right, Trump will retreat. He keeps testing the waters, but if it doesn't work, he retreats. But if you show softness and go, oh, maybe we should have tanks, maybe National Guard, maybe Marines, next thing you know, you're gonna have military all over America. And then, by the way, Palantir's collecting all your information, and there goes your freedoms, and you missed it. No, this is the time to push back. This is the time to show what America really is.
It's time to point out to your Republican friends too. what's going on, right? Because a lot of them just sort of hold their nose, hold their ears, and just get through this embarrassing time. Those who don't really love him but voted for him, and that's the thing, is to point out to them, this is a dictatorship. These are the signs of fascism and dictatorship and authoritarian rule, and that is not in the spirit of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party.
Yeah, why is he even talking about a third term? We don't have a third. It's unconstitutional to have a third term. Why are you having that discussion? Well, you can't. The military cannot police our streets. That's a stone cold fact in American law. Nope, I don't care. I want to do it anyway. Why? Why do you hate our Constitution? Why do you hate our laws? So that's just a fact. And so now we're going to find out what America's about. And I think we'll defeat them and we'll defeat authoritarianism. But right now, it's nip and tuck. So make your voice heard. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Operation Joy comments have started to come in. That's good, because we're gonna do that in about 25 minutes. After all this, you're gonna need Operation Joy. Jack Callahan says, I love Michael being co-host. He's a stalwart, steady voice, which complements Cenk's erudite passion. Really, thank you, Jack, on behalf of both of us.
Yeah.
Teddy Lucy Linda says, Michael, sure, you're a stand-up guy. I love your insights and acknowledgments. Rebel Dragon says, woohoo, I love it when the guest hosts are in studio. Me too, I love that. Kaj says, I'm enjoying seeing more in studio shows, especially Michael Schur and his steadfast, calm demeanor. Even during Cenk's epic Iraq war rant, Michael was a rock. Love TYT. Okay, thank you guys, we love you guys too.
Iraq or a rock?
No, a rock.
Thank you.
A virus called man with legitimate critique here. We'll talk it through. They write in, after 2016, there were many leftists talking about starting a third party. We knew then that Democrats would never do the right thing. Cenk and others said, no, let's take over the party. It'll take too long to get a third party to be competitive. Where are we now? Seems to me that people like Nina Turner were correct to try the Progressive People's Party, which by the way, she did for about 5 seconds. It's too bad TYT and others didn't unite to support that goal. Democratic leadership will literally die in office before letting go of power doing the morally right thing. So guys, look, 2028 is make or break. If the Democratic Party defeats their voters again and picks someone that is just totally corporate controlled, they get into office and they just do whatever the donors want, then I give up. Then we can't win. Okay, then a third party then becomes more likely and more reasonable, and we'll have to try to build one in over 20 years. Wish us luck. Jesus Christ, it's going to be a long, hard slug. Although now independents are way bigger voting bloc than Democrats or Republicans. But right now, you still have plenty of chances to win. 2028 is right there, okay? As Donald Trump showed, whoever is the candidate in your presidential election, especially if they win, obviously if they win, they control the whole party. So you don't, like with Justice Democrats, we tried grassroots up, right? It got defeated in 100 different ways, okay? It succeeded in amazing ways and then got defeated. But if you go top down, Trump showed you can definitely do it. It's just a matter of winning and willpower, period. So give us one more chance, and that's Rebellion Pack. Newfie Dragon said, I thank God every day for finding TYT. Cenk reflects my anger over Gaza. I want to scream at all of our political leaders who have done nothing. Thank you, brother. Remote Dragon says, every politician who takes money from Israel, AIPAC, ADL, etc., needs to be confronted on the issue relentlessly during their re-election campaigns. ADL doesn't give money, it's a different thing, but AIPAC and its group of lobbies that are supporting Israel do, and I think that you should not vote for anyone who takes AIPAC money or Israeli lobby money. That's, since the genocide began. I mean, why? Why would I want to support a guy who says, yeah, I'm going to send your money for a genocide? Hell no, no way. That's what primaries are for. You don't need to vote for a Republican. You go into a primary and say, you take dirty AIPAC money, you're serving a foreign government in the middle of a genocide. And you want my vote? Why would I vote for a genocide? No, hell no is my answer. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Michael with you guys, and also Awesome Austin 54321 and Velvet Xers. Thank you guys for joining on Twitch. We appreciate you. Funny handles. But guys, if you have Amazon Prime already, you actually could help us a lot in about 30 seconds. Go become a member on Twitch, totally free to you because you already have Amazon Prime, but we do get the revenue. So that's tyt.com/prime, tyt.com/prime. All right, Michael, what's next?
I have Prime. I should go do that.
Exactly.
I have to Google Twitch. All right, let's take a look at this as the outrage continues.
How about the U.S. government owning 10% of Intel?
I hate corporate welfare. That's privatization in reverse. We want the government to divest of assets, not buy assets. So terrible, one of the bad ideas that's come out of this White House.
I am very, very uncomfortable with that idea. I'm very uncomfortable with that one. But that's grist for another mill on another day.
One of the worst ideas, one of the bad ideas to come out of this White House. I'm glad they could find one there. Last Friday, the Trump administration announced that the US government would be taking a 10% stake in Intel, which manufactures semiconductor chips in the United States. But they're getting a lot of pushbacks from fellow conservatives, like we just listened to, are stating that the government should stay out of private companies' affairs. Before we get to more of those unhappy Republicans, Cenk, let's get the terms of the deal. Per a statement from Intel, the government's equity stake will be funded by the remaining $5.7 billion in grants previously awarded but not yet paid to Intel under the U.S. CHIPS and Science Act, and $3.2 billion awarded to the company as part of the Secure Enclave program. The $8.9 billion investment is in addition to the $2.2 billion in CHIPS grants Intel has received to date, making for a total investment of $11.1 billion. In other words, the government is taking money that it was originally going to give to Intel for free, nothing in exchange, and trading that for a stake in the company now. The US government is now the largest single shareholder in Intel. And here's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explaining why this was an important deal for the administration.
For national security, we need to make our own chips here. We cannot rely on Taiwan, which is 9,500 miles away from us and only 80 miles from China. The CHIPS Act was just a giveaway to rich companies. I mean, why in the world is the United States of America taking money and giving it to companies like TSMC, which is worth $1 trillion? I mean, why would we give them money to come to America? Donald Trump understands how to do this. What he does is he says, if you don't build in America, you're going to pay a 100% tariff and then watch them come flying in. It is a worse deal than giving it away. But when you put this money in the hands of Donald Trump, you're going to get a better deal for the American taxpayer.
Joe, there are industries that we have to onshore. I would say that the single point of failure for the global economy is that 99% of the advanced chips in the world are made in Taiwan.
Okay, first on Lutnick, I love when they say that, and we'll continue this here. But I love when they say that, well, we're just giving the money, we're just giving money away. How is that any different than the massive tax breaks that you give to oil companies that don't have to pay a dime in tax? I love when they say those things, when they talk about giveaways, but they're happy to give away to the oil companies. But regardless, these arguments are not winning me over, but they're also not winning over a lot of conservatives. And Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, is one of those. If socialism is government owning the means of production, he writes on Twitter, wouldn't the government owning part of Intel be a step towards socialism? terrible idea. Conservative commentator Eric Erickson wasn't happy either. So many of you were opposed to Mamdani wanting to seize the means of production in New York City, but are totally fine with Trump's Commerce Secretary wanting the U.S. government to become the largest shareholder of Intel. This is socialism with an R next to its name. Representative Thomas Massey, also of Kentucky, said this to Fox Business: nothing in the CHIPS Act authorized the U.S. government to buy stock in Intel. Conflicts of interest arise when the government gets in bed with private companies. Intel is now more likely to cooperate with government intrusions into private computing, and government regulatory agencies are more likely to play favorites with Intel. The CHIPS Act was a doomed Democrat-led ploy for corporate welfare. It should be rescinded, not expanded into government acquisition of private companies. Trump is clearly upset with the pushback because later he wrote on Truth Social, "I paid zero for Intel. It is worth approximately $11 billion. All goes to the USA. Why are stupid people unhappy with that? I will make deals like that for our country all day long. I will also help those companies that make such lucrative deals with the United States. I love seeing their stock price go up, making the USA richer and richer, more jobs for America. Who would not want to make deals like that?" And the Trump administration might be making more deals like this. Here's White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett.
Okay, so we should expect the U.S. government to be taking more equity stakes in businesses around the country. That is something that if you're a CEO this morning watching us, you should say, okay, the Sovereign Wealth Fund may be coming and trying to effectively buy in some kind of equity stake.
It's possible, yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, that if in the past the federal government has been giving money away lickety-split to companies, and the taxpayers have received nothing in return. And so now what's happening with the Intel deal is the CHIPS Act money is going out as planned, but instead of it just going out and disappearing into the ether, the U.S. taxpayers are getting a little bit of equity. I can really not see how anyone would think that's a bad thing, unless you thought that the government was then going to go in and run the company. But these are going to be shares that don't have voting rights. The government's going to stay out of it.
They are the largest shareholder there. I love that we're now at a place where we're being run by people who say lickety split and grist for the mill. It has been a long time since the government made an investment like the Trump administration just made into Intel. You have to look all the way back to the 2008 financial crisis to find examples like the government's 92% ownership of finance and insurance giant AIG in 2008, or its more than $30 billion assistance to General Motors after the company filed for bankruptcy in 2009. Intel is an interesting case because it represents the United States' best hope of keeping the manufacturing of semiconductors here in the United States.
Okay, so I'm going to point out Republican hypocrisy in a second, but no, I love this. I think it's definitely the right move, and I've been saying this for a long time on the Young Turks. Okay, so the CHIPS Act says, okay, here, Intel have $11 billion for nothing, because we think it'll help the country kind of, a little bit, we hope, for national security, right? And in return, we're gonna get absolutely nothing. How about putting guardrails in so they can't fire people? No, we're not gonna do that. They fired 20,000 people right after the bill, right? Okay, now Intel is in actual trouble and they need the money. So they say, oh, this is socialism for the government to take a piece of Intel. No, it's the exact opposite, it's capitalism. In capitalism, the way that it works is if you give money, equity into a company, you get a piece, if you give money and capital into a company, you get equity back, that's shares. That's how capitalism works. Socialism is, I now take your company for no reason. And so when CNBC in their panicked voice are like, does this mean that this is happening in more companies? No, if you have a perfectly healthy company and you don't need the government's help, then no, it's not gonna happen to you. The government's not just randomly seizing your company. You're coming to the government with your hand out and going, please give me $11 billion for free. And the answer from now on should be, no, I'm not gonna be no, you're gonna give me equity like you would for an investor. Why not? Why shouldn't the American people have that? Does that mean you have to keep it forever? No, you could buy it and then sell it, right? So for example, during the 2008 crash, the US government bought 60% of GM. You know what they did with it? They started making cars and centralizing. No, they sold it back, okay? So by the way, they should have done that with the banks. They should have taken over the banks And if they were gonna make profits in the future, we should have had a share in that. Instead, we just gave them money for free, which is what we always do. So there's two different sets of folks here when we talk about Republicans. First, there's the non-Trump Republicans who are all in a panic over this because they're like, oh no, our corporate donors, our beloved corporate donors, we were feeding them and they were giving us legalized bribes. What are you doing? We're supposed to give away the money for nothing at all. The American taxpayer shouldn't have anything. No, only the corporations should get the money for free. No, it's a robbery. It's been a robbery the entire time. Then for Trump, is there hypocrisy there? Yeah, of course there is. Michael's absolutely right. It's not just the tax cuts or the tax breaks. The oil companies get $35 billion a year in subsidies. For what? For what? You're the most profitable companies in the world. So Trump is like, oh, Intel, okay, that for whatever reason that suits his purposes. Meanwhile, since the oil companies bribed him to no end legally, they gave him endless money. Now he's like, oh yeah, 11 billion, I want steak. Oh, it's good, and I'm telling you as a fair person, I love that. The $35 billion were given for no goddamn reason to the oil companies. I don't want any steaks. No, I don't want any shares of ExxonMobil or all these companies. We've been giving them $35 billion a year for endless period of years. You know how long we've been giving them subsidies? 100 years. They've been robbing us for 100 years. They're the most profitable companies in the world. You know what we've gotten out of it? Nothing. So I love this trend. I love that the corrupt Republican politicians and pundits are crying over it, but it should be done across the board. You get a portion, you get shares in return, and then you sell it. And if we started actually bringing in revenue for the American taxpayers that way, that would be amazing. Last couple of things. I'm relieved to disagree with Massey again. So I disagree with him on that. And then, oh yeah, this is important. Guys, look, let's be honest. It turns out Intel would have given away all these shares if Biden had asked for it. But Biden didn't ask for it. The Democrats didn't ask for it. So this is a very rare case. Trump huffs and puffs about his negotiation ability. We still have war in Ukraine, still have war in Gaza. The tariffs are a disaster, so I don't see it. But on this one, he's right. Because he said, yeah, I want shares. And they're like, oh, right away, okay. If they had asked earlier, they also would have gotten shares.
Yeah, I don't think it's that simple. There has to be precedent for it. But the thing that, and I don't necessarily disagree with you.
There wasn't precedent here, and he did it.
There wasn't, right? I know, but just because Trump is doing something that has no precedent doesn't make it something that you want to do. Precedent.
No. But there's a difference, Mike. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting.
No,
but like if he breaks the law or he breaks the Constitution, you saw me flip out over on today's show, right? But there is no law against this. So if he's doing something on precedent that's positive for the American people, great.
Great. To an extent, and that's what my biggest problem with this is. Not in theory that this is not a bad idea, because I disagree with those Republicans who are going against it too, and I find myself agreeing more with you in principle. But this does speak to me. All I hear now when I hear Donald Trump is this authoritarianism, and this fits right into that. This demanding way of running the country that seeps into everything he does, and even when by accident something might seem like a decent idea, I do think that you can go through Congress when you have this legislation, you have the CHIPS Act, and you have the Congress and the Senate debating it, that yeah, this is an idea that we could maybe take forward next time there's that kind of a negotiation. But to have a president who fancies himself an authoritarian do this, to me, even if it's something I like, I don't like the way it's being done. The other side is that to me, it's all political too. It's so that Donald Trump can say that he's the one who kept semiconductor jobs in the United States when the CHIPS Act was what did that for Intel. So in theory, I don't really disagree with you, Cenk, but I don't like the fact that he's doing it in this way.
Yeah, okay, I hear you, especially given the context. But look, there's an easy answer to that. I would tell Intel, okay, do you want the 5.7 billion or not? Because if you don't want it, no problem. We don't take any shares.
Right. Well, and the other side of that is Kevin Hassett saying these aren't voting shares. You telling me that anybody on the Intel board is going to go against the president of the United States, the United States government who owns 10%? These aren't voting shares. They're voting without.
There should be a certain number of years, and then you sell back.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
See, we got a deal.
Look at that.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back. All right, so let's go to our members on TYT.com. Mariachi Dragon, so wait, does this mean that we all get dividend checks? No, Trump gets them. I want my dividend check if it's in my best interest. No, brother. No, if Trump was getting it, I would hate it. No, this does not go to Trump. It goes to the taxpayers. Will you get a dividend check? You might. Or we might pay off some of the debt with it.
Or he runs Intel into the ground like he's done with so many of his
others. But don't let him control the company. That's crazy, right? Like shares for the taxpayers is great. Donald Trump being in charge of anything, disaster. And I'm also worried about what this next member said. Softball Dragon said, how long before the US government is a shareholder of MyPillow? No. MyPillow does not need a bailout. Crazy Lake of Fox says, I'm actually in favor of this. If the government is giving billions to Intel, it should have a stake in its profits. Like I said, I've been saying that for years. I'm totally in favor of it. And I stick with my principles, not partisanship. Dragon of the Two Moons says, I wish the entire country could know the truth about Israel. Wang Jun says, Trump had more red flags than a Chinese parade, in reference to the authoritarian tendencies. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, Lever had a series of podcasts about whether or not the Fed should be independent. It was pretty informative. So it makes sense. If you make it make sense, if you're still watching, you should check that out. See, that's a super interesting conversation about the role of the Federal Reserve. And the Lever has some terrific podcasts that show you what our government's actually up to. And again, nonpartisan, real excellent journalism. Misty and Who, thank you for the donation through TYT.com, appreciate you. Art Guy says, without any breaks, Trump's gonna wreck the economy so fast he'll be in office when it crashes around him, assuming he lives that long, of course. I agree with you, I think that he is gonna crash it, and it's gonna be a disaster for Republicans. I don't want it to crash, but disaster for Republicans does sound good, like the relief we need before we slip into authoritarianism. Ford Country 420 says, if that orange piece of crap goes to heaven, I'm volunteering for hell. Microgram says, there's no way Trump had the idea of firing Cook himself. That's the first story from the Federal Reserve. I wonder who told him he could do this. It's Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller.
Whenever you see him doing something outrageous, something that's against the law, something against the Constitution, it was Stephen Miller's idea. And then he told him, Mr. Trump, this will make you look so powerful. Then Trump's like, me like to look powerful, Stephen. Tell me what to do. No Math Dragon says Trump's going to bankrupt our country just as he did with his casinos. He most certainly did do that with his casinos, and I am worried about it. Ellie Bennett writes in on YouTube member section, those people who want a dictator should be told that their lazy selves are the problem. They're too lazy to be involved in politics, so now it's off the rails and they want somebody to come fix it.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well, but I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Michael with you guys. Next story.
Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
All right, so Taylor Swift announced today that she is engaged to Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. The country is abuzz with it, and people are generally happy. I don't really care. I like them both. I wish them good luck, but I don't know anything about their relationship. But Charlie Kirk does. Charlie Kirk has some important advice for them that I'm sure they're writing down as we speak. So let's listen and then make fun of him.
Maybe one of the reasons why Taylor Swift has been so just kind of annoyingly liberal over the last couple of years is that she's not yet married and she doesn't have children. I say this non-sarcastically. I say this as a husband and a father. Having children changes you. Getting married changes you. Taylor Swift might de-radicalize herself. She might come back down to reality. I want them to have lots of children. It teaches you something about yourself. I've seen this happen time and time again. When people start to get married and have children, it starts to change your politics. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
Why? Why would she submit to her husband?
Jesus.
Okay, what Jesus, indeed. Okay, so look, the old school way of thinking about it is, well, look, the husband brings home the bacon, and Travis Kelce does. He gets paid a lot of money to play football. On top of that, Charlie spent like hours talking about how he's like a insurance company spokesperson, and he got her a big ring, and like almost like he's proud of him. Okay, way to go, Daddy Kelce, right? Okay, good. Taylor Swift is like what, 200 times richer?
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, works her ass off, right? So, like, isn't this convenient, right? So it doesn't matter what religion you're in, and this it applies to a lot of religions, okay? Conveniently, the men who run those religions go, now remember, rule number 1 is submit to me. Oh, right, okay. This is pretty convenient. Reminds me of, the leader of the Mormons when he came up with the rule of, I was talking to God, and he says I can have multiple wives, and I can start with my cleaning lady. It's literally what happened. The only person who didn't believe him was his wife. Okay, so she did not submit to her husband. Right. So, anyways, it's fascinating that they're trying to go backwards in time, Michael. Right? They're trying to go to an earlier era where we just got the women to shut up and stop their feminism, vote Republican, let us be in charge because we've done such a great job, okay?
The more they're in charge, the more we understand what Make America Great Again means to all those people and why they put it on their hats and their shirts. I mean, that's what it was when they were happiest, when women submitted to their men, and we had this sort of the structure of the family and how everything you just said about the man being the breadwinner and the woman keeping house. It reveals itself constantly when you see it in the changing of the way we teach our history. Even all of it is it comes out as Make America Great Again in their eyes.
Yeah, in their eyes, obviously.
In their eyes, of course. Obviously.
Yeah, and right now Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are in the middle of making America great, period, through spectacular achievements in their respective fields, right? But if Charlie had it his way, he said, 35 is way too late to get married. So she should have gotten married earlier and submitted to her husband, in which case she likely would not have been the spectacular success that she is now.
Right.
How does that help her?
Well, that's why we can't have feminism.
Right, exactly, because it doesn't help her, it helps you, right? And by the way, if you're a real man, you don't need some law out there that everyone must submit to you. No, you earn their respect.
Yeah.
Right? So, but if you're lazy, you don't want to earn the respect. You go, I spoke to God and he says, I'm in charge and you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, who listens to that? Come on, guys. Even outside of this context, anytime somebody says, look, I used to say this all the time about the suicide bombers, right? So, the guy, their manager comes in and says, I talked to God. He says, you should put on a suicide belt and you're gonna get to heaven. Oh, that's great news, then you put it on first. What? Well, if it's good enough for me, why isn't it good enough for you? You're gonna get to go to heaven. You told me how great it is. Why don't you go to heaven first? Anytime somebody tells you that God is talking to them and you should do something that helps them and not you, I got news for you, it's BS, okay? That's not rocket science, right? And look, the most important part of this is they're not an average couple. They're not anywhere near average. They're the least average couple you've ever seen. But for the average couple, it's not about, what religious predilections do we have? They gotta both go to work because we're under corporate rule and we don't make enough money. And so they figured out a way that everybody's gotta go to work, everybody's gotta work 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours, right? And you're living in some ancient world in the 1800s. My homestead will be enough to take care of us both, right? But we don't live in that world, Charlie. So this is all nonsense talk.
And Charlie, thanks, because when I had a kid, it made me much more progressive because it made me want to have my son grow up in a place in a country where education was about choice and religion was not foisted upon you, and for him to play on an even playing field would be better for him and for the country. So, I have a totally different experience than Charlie Kirk as a father.
Yeah, last thing is a surprising cameo here. Get a little what Trump said.
I have to tell you, the biggest pop culture news of the year broke while we were in this cabinet meeting. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish him a lot of luck. No, I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
All right, surprisingly gracious because he's taken shots at them before. We'll take it. Although that is almost exactly what he said about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, there's that. Somebody posted a funny thing just on this Taylor Swift thing to me today. Said it's amazing when you look at Travis Kelce because nobody knew who he was before, Taylor Swift came along. And I said to them, I would not have been able to pick Taylor Swift out of a lineup, but I knew exactly who Travis Kelce was. Just shows you how funny perspective is.
It is, and you're both nuts. Okay, and
well, I didn't. I mean, yeah, real. I mean, not. I actually probably wouldn't have been able to pick her out of a lineup, but there was a time where I knew who she was, but for most of her career, I didn't.
Yeah, super last thing. It's ironic because Charlie Kirk's been speaking out a lot against Muslims and Islam and in every way recently. But what he's saying is identical to fundamentalist Muslims. We're like, women should submit to their husbands. And he's like, oh, it's terrible. We can't have that. Women should submit to their husbands. Interesting. Yeah, fundamentalists, birds of a feather flock together. All right. We're gonna come back in a minute for the members. So beautiful time to hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. And we're gonna give you Operation Joy, make you a little bit happier. And our viewers are great at actually spreading the happiness. So give it a shot. We'll see you there.